keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future.
I'm getting fresh.
Oh, I can't hide, can I?
What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free.
Well, all right. Welcome back to Strategic Insights. And as you can see, we have really brightened up the place. We have done some renovation, and we now have the place looking so much better. Oh, that's because you're here. Oh. We have a visitor. I mean, it's shocking. And not just any visitor, but someone who is very special.
Oh.
Trinidad princess herself.
Pouring it on tonight.
Well, you know, I figured somebody's got to be the good cop. You be the bad cop. What can I say? No, it's good. So we're here with Julie, and she's going to talk for the rest of the show. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit here.
Oh, wow. It's amazing.
That'll be interesting.
It would be. Take it away.
Exactly.
Take it away. Well, Julie, you know, was kind of coerced into being here tonight, I'm sad to say, and was just a great trooper about this, a good sport and everything else. So thank you for gracing our studio with your presence.
Welcome.
Do you feel comfortable?
Amazing. Yeah.
Really?
I'm amazing.
Oh, that's
Tremendous
awesome.
Being here. No pressure at all.
You're not lying. I know.
No.
That's good. Well, we have, let's see, Allison and Rosemary and Marie are with us. Marie's here. And look, you've been saying hello. I don't know, somebody else was just on as well, but they dropped off. I guess they figured they'd get out while the getting was good. So
It don't matter, Marie's gone, so we
yes, Marie's here. We can start the show. So Gary, this was your idea, so I think you should have the honors of launching us into this particular program.
Wow. That sounds like heavy duty stuff. Right?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was your idea.
If it was my idea, we're in trouble. We better hope it was God's idea, or the whole place is going to start falling apart.
Oh, I see. Now you're getting religious on me. All right, I see. Well, actually, I think it's a great idea. We really enjoy kind of talking with people about their story, their perspective, and we've had a few others on that share some of the thoughts that they've had or experiences that they've had in life. And honestly, I've never interviewed a ex-Hindu. Wow.
Wow.
So this could be fun. Yeah. So, your story is one that takes you all the way back to when you were really little, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. Tell us a little bit about your life.
Oh, yeah. No,
Gary will stop you if it gets boring. Don't worry.
I can't help myself. I'm looking in the background.
Yeah, don't do that. Look there.
Look ahead.
He's right there.
Look ahead.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess my life started off, I was born in Trinidad, and I was born into a Hindu family. And perhaps when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, my entire family was converted into Christianity. And literally what had happened was, there was sort of a Christian church close by to where we lived, and they
All
would
right.
invite us, to special services that they had and Sunday school. And then, eventually, as a family, we made a decision to all get saved.
Okay, so did they just kind of wear you down until you finally gave in and says, "All right, enough. We'll become Christians."
I think there was a lot of different things that was happening as well, in our family. And
Okay.
my parents decided it was more their decision at the time. They decided that perhaps sort of going to church and becoming saved was perhaps a better way, because
Okay.
of various things that was also happening in our family at the time.
Right. Cool. So as you think back to that time in your life when before your family started going to church and embracing Christianity and all of that, what do you remember of that time period in terms of your involvement in the Hindu religion and all that went along with that?
So, I mean, Hinduism there is quite a lot of traditions and rituals. So, at various points in times of the year, you'd have different festivals that
Right.
you'd need to fast and abstain from meats and different things. And then a lot of times you'd have like Hindu prayers, and you'd invite the Hindu priest, sorry, to
Hindu
come
priest, right?
over, and to do these prayers. And it was, I would say, even though I was quite young at the time, that it was very, it was traditions and a bit ritualistic, as opposed to perhaps in the Christian faith, where you are kind of dealing more with relationship with God, as opposed to just perhaps doing things.
Well, I have to say that there are rather large swaths of Christianity where people are going through rituals and traditions, as a way of thinking that they're relating to God, but they really have more of a relationship with their traditions than they actually do with the Lord. But so in your case, obviously being very young, um, and all the different aspects of the Hindu religion, were you able or actually supposed to do certain things at that age, or was it mostly you just watched everybody?
At that age, I'd probably watch everybody. I think I do distinctly remember, because as we were talking before the show, and I guess a lot of people would know, in Hinduism you've got quite a number of gods.
Have you
And
ever
so,
kind of counted them all
no,
up
I mean, somebody said once they probably have got one for every day of the year, but I mean,
for every day of the year?
I don't know. I,
Wow,
I
that
know
could
they
be.
do have quite a lot of them. And
Yeah.
one of the things I do remember is when we would have exams, that my parents would probably have have the Hindu priest come over, and they would do a specific prayer to a specific god for that. If you're doing exams, it would be geared towards a specific god, for stuff like
Did it
that.
work?
um
Just inquiring minds want to know.
I couldn't say. I mean,
Okay.
I was quite young, but it was one of the things that they would do.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Well,
that's cool. I mean, listen, obviously that's what they understood, and you were in that. So, Gary, any thoughts that you have on this time in her life?
Well, I was curious, once you became a Christian, was there persecution from other people in your family? I know, being Jewish, when I became a Christian, there were people very upset. There are people who still won't speak to me. So what kind of reaction did you get from staunch Hindus? And when you go back home, what kind of reaction do you still get today?
well, at the start, our family, as far as I know, everyone in our family, immediate and otherwise, were or probably are still Hindus. And so when we all converted as a family, it kind of created this distance between us and the other relatives, because Hinduism, or it's not only just a religion, but it's a cultural thing. It was something that kind of kept the families together, they had something in common. But when, you know, if you stepped outside of that and you started doing something different, then it's easy to just get separated from the rest of the family. I think that was how it was back in the day. I think at this point in time, people are a little bit more open, and it's not, you know, with technology and, you know, people get an understanding of different religion and how people react to different things. It, you know, people kind of accept things a lot more than they do back then. But because so many years of it has elapsed, that, you know, there still would be this divide, in the sense that you know, you wouldn't necessarily be treated the same as if, you know, you were in the same religion.
But what kind of things would people say? Is there real? You're from Trinidad, and over there, is there real persecution against Christians like there is, say, in India?
I mean,
the Hindus, or is that different? More, or is it more subtle?
I wouldn't, yeah, I guess it would be more subtle, because I think, you know, back in Trinidad, there is respect for different religions. And so there wouldn't be necessarily persecution at a level where, you know, there is some physical aspect to it. I suppose in terms, it's more subtle, and yeah, people just kind of perhaps distance themselves from you.
More the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So when your family starts going to church, right? I mean, the evangelists who came to your family, is that how it worked, right? They came in and shared the gospel with you guys. Was it a scenario where, you know, he said, you guys want to receive Christ and pray with me? I mean, how did that work?
I think it was a gradual process, sort of just, you know, exposing us, just inviting us
Okay.
to the services, because sometimes they would have missionaries coming from the United States here.
Yes, coming from the U.S. What a shock.
And I think it was a gradual process, and
Okay.
I think as salvation, you know, was explained to my family, I think my parents just wanted to try this, because I guess they sort of figured that, you know, what they were in at the minute wasn't working for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you remember if there ever was a time where, let's say, you know, because typically in many churches, they'll have, you know, the altar call at the end of the service of some sort, where they'll say, who wants to receive Christ, who wants to get saved. Did that happen? Is that how it worked?
No, I don't think so. I think because they used to come home to us and you know, visit us ever so often, and I think
Who was they?
so that the church would have invited us, you know, to
Okay.
the Sunday schools and
Right.
to their services and stuff. They actually had a relationship with us where they would actually come to our house.
Okay.
So it was, I think it was more gradual than you know, sort of being in the church and having an altar call and, you know, kind of deciding there and then, I want to accept Jesus Christ.
Oh, okay.
It was more gradual.
All
than
right.
anything
Okay.
else.
So in that transition where you know, your family's Hindu, you have been, who knows for how long that the family has been engaged in all these different kinds of activities that are part of the Hindu religion and the culture and all of that, right? So in that transition, what did that look like in terms of, you know, how maybe there was some mixture of the old, you know, Hindu stuff now with, okay, we're also now embracing Christianity. How did that look?
The thing is, like, I guess a lot of people say, when you get saved, it's your spirit that gets reborn. But
Mhm.
then you've also, you know, have to every day. It's a constant renewing of your mind, because the things that you were brought up in and you grew up in, you're already programmed to do things that way.
Right.
And I think perhaps less so for me, because I was saved at an early age, but I've seen this in my parents, specifically my mother,
Mhm.
where things that she would have done while she was a Hindu,
Mm.
even to this day, I can see that some things that she still does resembles what she would have done back then.
Okay.
And it's sort of your mentality and your mindset and renewing your mind and going
Right.
through, because sometimes, I mean, even for me, for a number of years, sometimes getting saved, you think, oh, it's my ticket into heaven and I'm okay.
Well, it is, but
but in terms of going through that renewing process and growing and actually starting to get involved in ministry and do different things, then
Right.
that's the other steps that happens after.
Right.
But sometimes it takes some of us longer
Sure.
to get to that point.
Right. So did you ever sense that the church was pushing to try to get people, your family, to make that transition happen quickly?
From what I recollect, yeah, maybe they did,
Yeah.
but it was really subtle. I mean,
Okay.
I think they were just they were constantly always coming and inviting us to church, and we would always be going to the services.
Well,
So
okay. So that was more of an invitational kind of a
approach.
approach to
Yeah.
that, which is great. Well, that's awesome. Gary, any thoughts at this point?
Well, one thing I'd be interested in is because the way that we connected with you is because you had a desire to know about dreams and visions. What do you know in Hinduism or in even in your culture growing up? Was that mostly seen as superstition, or do you have any idea in that culture how dreams and visions were looked at?
So I guess growing up, there was quite a lot of superstition about dreams and stuff, and whereas now that I've come under Pastor Gary's mentorship, and I'm beginning to I've understood that dreams are mostly symbolic and they're not literal.
Right.
But back in the day, without that grounding, you would dream something and you think you'd probably think, I dreamt somebody died, and then you go away thinking, oh my god, they're gonna die or something like that.
Yeah.
But I guess to answer your question, yeah, but they probably would have placed a different explanation or different analysis of the symbols than we would when we're doing it now. To be specific, I don't have a specific example, but yes, I would say that there is quite a lot of superstition, sort of with interpreting what a dream would mean back then.
Right.
I
Interesting.
think it probably is in the church even today. That's what I find.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there really is. So what, just to kind of follow up on that question from Gary, what drew you to explore the whole realm of dreams and vision and interpreting all of that?
So what actually happened to me, because I think I mentioned that only maybe the past 5 or 6 years I've really kind of buckled down and made a conscious decision.
So you were a backslider before that.
Yeah.
So I can clarify. No, you were a nice little Christian girl that was perfect. Don't worry about it.
So what's the question again?
Oh, there we go.
You made me forget.
I did, yes. So I was curious as to what drew you to the whole realm of dreams and visions and wanting to know how to interpret them.
So to be fair, I never did. I was never interested in being brutally honest.
With dreams?
Yeah. I was never interested in.
Well, then this is a real miracle. Okay, go ahead.
I was never interested in interpreting dreams, or it's all a gradual process for me. But what actually happened is there was this one year, so I go back I try to go back to home, which is Trinidad, every Christmas, and I met someone in the prophetic, a pastor. She was in the prophetic, and she gave me these words, and she said, God desires to talk to you, and when you go to bed at night, just take a notepad and a pen and leave it on your side table. And lo and behold, I actually started getting all of these dreams.
Nice.
So I started taking notes of them, writing them down. But the thing is, I didn't really understand. I didn't know what they meant. But I really was having, all of these dreams. And then one day my brother, who lives in Trinidad, he sent me an email saying, oh, look at this YouTube clip. I just ignored it. I never looked at the YouTube clip. And he wrote me again, and he's like, did you look at the clip? And I was like, no. So then I decided to click on the link. I went in, and then lo and behold, there was you guys interpreting my dream.
What? Shocking. Oh my gosh. So what you're really saying is that this man here changed your life.
Yay!
Yay, Gary Fishman.
Oh boy, where's he gone?
If it was me, she's in trouble. Okay.
What's that?
If it was me, she's in big trouble.
Well,
oh boy,
we know that it's Jesus in you. Okay. Lord have mercy. Wow.
There's a lot of lightning last night, and I want to make sure today I don't get hit with none of it.
Oh, all right. Oh my goodness. Cool. So, any other thoughts that come to mind with respect to, this whole transition that you went through from the Hindu world into the Christian world?
what I would like to, what I would say to that is, after you've sort of made a decision and you've converted to Christianity, and yes, you've come out from being a backslidden Christian and you've started to take it seriously, I've realized that, there are lots of repercussions to family members, going back through the generations, and having served different gods, and it impacts you to the extent that you can get angry and you can get bitter because you realize that the things that they've put their hands to do and they've consciously wanted to do, that it affects you. Right. and you can get really angry about it because it disrupts your life and it can hold you back. And the thing is, you say to yourself, well, look, I've made a decision to serve God and to serve Jesus. And, I've never really put my hands to anything as far as I can remember.
Sure.
Why should I have to pay for the consequences of it? And, I've found myself having to go to different, healing retreats and all sorts of different, sessions and, to go through things that have gone by in the past that you just have to deal with so that you can get that freedom and deliverance to move forward with your life now.
Right. And so how's that been for you to do that?
It's difficult because I'm not necessarily, as I'm not necessarily one of those persons that like to open up to stuff. And
yet
so
here you are talking to millions of people all around the world.
I mean,
clearly there's something going on here.
Clearly, no pressure.
No pressure at all. Yeah.
No persuasion.
No, not at So how did you discover first that you were being impacted by the generational things that your family had gotten into as Hindus? So,
I mean, to start with, I didn't know that it was because of that.
Right.
What I found happening is there were different cycles that was occurring in my life, and I'd literally go through something. It would be the same scenario, perhaps in a different set of people,
right.
But it was the same scenario reoccurring. Or you just find yourself that you've reached a certain point, and no matter how much you try, you couldn't get to the next level.
Okay.
And then going to different seminars and sessions and training and deliverance sessions and prophetic people talking to you.
Okay.
Then your eyes become open and you realize, oh, hang on, this is not all natural stuff. This is stuff from spiritual stuff that is actually affecting me, which is a big discovery, because a lot of times if you're accustomed back in the traditions and the ritualistic stuff, and you think, well, I just did this because I wanted to tick a box and I'm okay.
Yeah.
But you realize that in your Christian walk, it's not like that. You need to kind of deal with all of the things that happened in the past. Like for me, I'm the kind of person that I try to cover it up and just move on, because it's easier to do that.
Oh, okay. Kind of make
But-
believe it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
unfortunately that doesn't work.
Well, it doesn't work because God wants you and all of his kids to be free. And so whatever, legal grounds that the enemy thinks he has because of things that were done by ancestors, right? This is the thing that we talk about many times, is how the enemy is so legalistic that when our ancestors sin, he takes that as permission to inflict upon the family the punishment for that sin. Even though Jesus paid the price. The devil operates as if there is no Jesus, there is no blood. And so, in your case, whatever kinds of things, whatever doors were opened, because, as you probably know by now, all these Hindu gods are representative of actual demons. People, when they worship these gods, that's a demon that they're worshiping. So those kinds of things, that open up doors into the enemy's world, where he now is able to exercise his influence and his power. You were experiencing that. Now, I think it's interesting that you say that you became angry. What was that like?
Well, like I said earlier, like the thing is, when you become aware that your life is being negatively impacted, so I've and I know the Bible says you shouldn't compare, but sometimes you think, well, oh my God, Jane or Jack, they're progressing.
Right.
Why am I just stuck at this point? And
Gotcha.
it becomes really frustrating, because you want to progress and you want to move, and even though there's nothing physically holding you back, something, situations just kind of appear and it just blocks you, and you think, oh my God, well, I didn't do anything. Why is this happening?
Okay.
And
So was that what the anger was focused on, or was it focused on the fact that you had these generational issues that were still operating in your life?
Well, yeah. So when I began to realize that perhaps, I don't know, I guess perhaps not all, but the majority of the reason why I'm being held back is due to stuff that happened in the past, then because I think to myself, well, I've never done that.
Right.
I didn't do, this. I didn't serve pagan gods. I didn't,
Sure.
Why should I be made to suffer for something that I didn't do?
Right. So that anger, how did you actually challenge that? Or I shouldn't say channel. How did you channel your anger to help you to move forward?
Well, I think I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't a struggle, because the thing is, at some point it becomes, which force is stronger? Is the anger stronger? Is the will to persevere and to go forward is stronger? Because it's something that you can deal with every day, and it's something that you just have to be strong enough. And okay, if I got discouraged today, but tomorrow I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna try again.
Okay.
So it's not an easy road.
Well, yeah. So what you're saying, I think, is that this process, you're still in process, perhaps, in becoming free from some of these generational, things that are as a result of your family line and all of that. But you're not giving up. No, because the alternative.
Yeah, because the thing is, you wouldn't be human if you didn't feel like giving up one day. But the truth is that there is no middle ground. If it's either you choose God or you choose the enemy. So
Yeah. Okay, preach it, girl. Any thoughts, Gary?
I have a question. I have experience with Hinduism through outreach, because in the past we've gone to different places where Hindus were having events, and we go in, and prophesy over people. And one thing that I found that they believe is that God is not a personal God. God is this energy force. God is everything. God is in everything. That's why they have crystals to attract the positive karma, the positive energy. But they have no idea that God knows you. You know, we would give them prophetic words and they would be stunned because they had no idea that the God who created them even knows who they are, or even or loves them, or is personal, or has a purpose for their life. So I'd be curious in your experience of Christianity in relation to Hinduism. To me, that's the greatest difference between the two. You know, to actually find out God is giving you dreams. There's a God who loves you so much that he cares enough to speak to you, to give you dreams, to bless you. So I'd be interested in you speaking to that. The difference in Hinduism, just God is just the forces of this earth, and everything is God. So, you know, the God, we don't believe everything is God. We worship God as King and the bridegroom and all the different aspects of who he is. So how did you experience that difference?
So I think back in the day, or perhaps how it is now, it's a lot of traditions, and it's kind of like, okay, so like I had said earlier, you know, if you're going to write an exam, your parents might decide, okay, let's have a prayer service at the house, and let's invite the Hindu priest.
Right.
And basically you do the service, and you know, they would put like flags, you know, these poles with a piece of fabric on
Right.
it, in your yard. And you know, sometimes I have this recollection that sometimes they'd bury like pieces of gold, or they would offer up milk.
Wow.
I'm not, I guess those perhaps were sacrificial. I'm
Right.
not quite sure the significance, but I'm sure there is a significance to it.
Right.
And I guess, you know, once you do these things, then I guess you do it with the expectation that you will get what you want. So okay, if I want to have success in my exam, then if I do this prayer meeting, then I'll have that. And so it was more like, you know, a system where if I want this, I give this. And you know, and I think that it departs from a relationship. It's not a relationship in a sense, because it's more like, you know, if I want this, I get it. I go and I do this and I get it, as opposed to being in a daily relationship with God. And I guess it also causes you to when you do become a Christian, it, you know, it's kind of difficult, because you kind of have that same mindset. So you want to find out. So let's say we're on the 10 Commandments kind of thing. You want to kind of like want to tick every box. So
Yes.
you know, there was a time I just go to church because, you know, I want to make in my mind, I want to not be guilty that I didn't go to church, because it will make God, I will please God.
You want to stay
And-
on God's good side. We
Yeah,
understand. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So it isn't, as far as my experience is, it could be different for other people, but
Right.
it wasn't about relationship, where I think in Christianity it's supposed to be about relationship.
Well, that's true.
And I think that's a big divergence. I mean, yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Did she answer your question, Gary?
Yeah, and now I have the second part, which is a
really?
more
Got you.
difficult question. But when I was growing up being Jewish, you know, there was so many rituals and traditions, and you know, now it's time to do this, and everything was scheduled. Then when I became a Christian, I found that same spirit operating a lot in the church. In fact, I wrote a book about it. You know, the whole idea of you know, the religious aspects of Judaism that Jesus warned about. You know, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is what? Tradition, hypocrisy, ritual. scheduling God out of everything that you do. So I found that operating in the church. When you became, now that you're Christian, do you find the freedom that you thought that you see in the Bible, or are there still aspects of religion from your past that you see? Do you still see ritual and tradition, just like you saw growing up, just like I did?
So maybe just to reiterate, you're asking me if I'm seeing sort of the same traditional ritualistic sort of behavior in the church.
I know not the same. Obviously, they don't worship
Yeah.
that stuff. But in terms of finding real freedom, do you find, are you able to find the Jesus of the Bible? Or do you see a lot of, like I did, find a lot of limitations and rituals and things? I'm not talking about your church you go to. I'm talking about in general.
Yeah, I would say in general, it is quite difficult to find a gathering where the main focus is about Jesus, and perhaps as gatherings get bigger, it becomes more difficult and perhaps more political to find Jesus in the crowd. And so I would have to say that, yeah, it could be quite ritualistic at times, and sometimes I do find myself saying that Jesus was washing feet when he was on the earth, and sometimes you go into the church and people who are in that you kind of expect to get to show the love of Christ, you don't see that kind of servant mentality coming from them. So yeah.
Wow, interesting. So now that you're this far removed from that culture, that time frame, that all that your family was involved in, how do you feel about trying to actually reach people? What would that look like if you were trying to reach folks, let's say back home, or maybe if there was others there where you live now, that are Hindu? What does your background now give you in terms of an ability maybe to connect with them?
I think, well, having seen the both sides of it, and I guess I didn't see. I was quite young when I was converted from Hinduism, but obviously, I've the neighborhood that my family live in back at home is very much in the Hindu environment. So I'm still quite familiar.
Yeah, sure.
What it looks like, and I guess I can understand what it feels like to be in that environment, and I can understand what it is to be a Christian.
Okay.
I can understand what it feels like to be in the church, and going in the church trying to find something, and sometimes it doesn't quite meet the mark. And so I guess it puts me in a good position to be able to talk to somebody, or to try to reach another Hindu, or anybody, as a matter of fact, because you can see both sides of it. I wasn't, kind of, some people say I wasn't born out of the womb, saved.
No, of course not. No one is. Sure. So in terms of reaching people like that, right, whether it's Hindu or Buddhist or folks from that stream, what would your advice be if someone says, well, what's the best way to try to connect with folks like that?
With someone who's not,
yeah, like Hindus, Buddhists, those folks from that stream, they're similar enough, but any of that kind of Eastern religion sort of thing. What would you say if someone asked you that?
I think my focus would be the thing is, to start with, people don't necessarily want you to come to in front of them and sort of criticize what they're accustomed
Really?
to.
They don't like that?
So I would kind of approach it. I would, for me, I guess, if you want to say selling point, I don't think that's the right word.
The selling point. I like that.
But it's more of a religion, and it's more of a one-on-one. It's kind of, it kind of, it's kind of a relationship between you and God, and it's not about ticking a box, and it's not about me doing something and expecting. I mean, yes, your obedience to God will bring, a result, but apart from that, it's really about you having a relationship with God.
You don't have to do those things for God to love you.
Yeah.
So in terms of,
Oops.
oh, is the bread done? In terms of actually trying to communicate with folks like that, what would be a good way that you think would work to, communicate those kinds of things to people?
I mean, I guess I would share sort of my experiences, because some of the things that I had seen, growing up, some of yeah, I mean, some of the things I've seen actually from the Hindu faith, and it, some of it can actually bring fear to you.
Can bring what?
Fear.
Fear.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's some of the services that they do. Yeah. And you hear some of the sounds, like they have different instruments that they use, and it can actually generate quite a lot of fear.
Interesting. So you were like freaking out over some of the stuff that.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And so I would say that, in Christ, there is no fear. There is that relationship, that you can come to God with. There is that freedom. There is that peace.
Yeah.
There is that abundant life.
Wow.
That you can get, from your walk with God.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. I mean, obviously, if there's and there's also in Christianity, there's certain streams that are very fear-based. It's all about, you better do right or you're going to go to hell. God's going to send you to hell. You can lose your salvation at any moment. There's a lot of places that unfortunately teach that kind of nonsense, making God out to be, this vindictive judge sort of thing. With Hinduism and Buddhism as well, there's no concept of judgment other than, you're repeating life until you get it right. You know what I'm saying? It's the reincarnation thing and all of that.
Yeah.
So when you talk about fear from a Hindu perspective, it was what, just basically the things that were being done and not the message so much?
So I think that in some of the Hindu services that I've gone to, a lot of them are in Hindi, so
so you can understand them anyway. Okay.
What's happening.
Well, that's a blessing.
But so, like, there's certain temples that you'd go to, because they're different. I don't know, sect is a good word, but and you can go to some of them, and it can be really graphic, and it can really generate fear.
Wow.
People can be running over coals and rolling on the floor, and it's not with the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
Yeah, and some of the instruments that they use, and you hear it, you just know that this is not. It can never be of God.
Okay.
But
interesting.
But
wow.
Yeah, but you wouldn't necessarily see all of what I'm talking about in a single place, because you'd have to go to different ones, because they pray to, they worship different gods, and depending on which one you whatever you want to get done, and you go to different ones, then the experience is quite different.
Wow, that's interesting stuff. I didn't know about that. Gary, any thoughts?
I just like for a second, because even if we don't have any Hindus watching right now, there's many people who watch this show, and I'm believing there'll be Hindu people who will be watching at some point. So what would you say to them, to those who would be watching, who either Hinduism or other types of religions where that's not based on a loving God? What would you say to those people?
Well, I would say that religion is more than just like I used to do sometimes, it's more than just showing up at a church or a temple, but it's more about relationship. It's more about being able to go to God with the things that you are dealing with today, that you're dealing with now, and to be able to pray about it, and to be able to see things happen in your life, and miracles happen and change comes. And it's not by having to make, because back in the Old Testament time, there was the sacrifice that had to be done.
Yeah.
But there is no need for a sacrifice anymore as that, because the blood of Jesus is the final sacrifice that was paid on the cross for us.
Amen. Awesome. So when did you kind of awaken to the truth or reality that you had this relationship with Christ? And what was that like to have that realization, that, oh my gosh.
I guess it's like you can get saved, and you can just get your ticket to heaven, and
You
be
can pray the
okay.
prayer. Exactly.
But it's like, I guess it's like going through life and having a load of resources available to you, but never tapping into it because you never went that extra step to have that relationship with God.
Right.
And I think for me, as I began to grow and I began to become more obedient and
Okay.
and submit, because it's about submission, and it's about having a good attitude while being submissive.
So you were rebellious, huh? Okay.
That things start falling off of you, and your eyes become more open. Because one of the prayers I always I pray oftentimes is, I'm asking God to open my eyes to see the things that the enemy doesn't want me to see. Because sometimes you can find yourself just going through day after day after day, and the time is going by, but you're not really accomplishing what you should be accomplishing.
Okay.
And it's getting that revelation and getting that insight that I've got God's resources. I've got God that I can tap into to do what I can't do, to go where I can't go.
Great. So was that kind of an encounter, or more of just a progression of awakening that you experienced?
Well, yeah, both in a sense, because when I explained earlier about the lady, the preacher back in Trinidad telling me, God wants to talk to you, and then I started actually having the dreams. And I think getting dreams from God itself is amazing, because it's like I think, well, who am I that God would want to give me a dream, that he has time in his busy schedule to give me a dream, and it just actually make you feel special. And so that's one part of it. But another aspect of it is just, for me, I'm always taking stock and looking back and seeing where I've come from, and seeing how things have changed. Because it's sometimes, if we're not conscious of where we've come from, we can become, we wouldn't be grateful, because I'm looking at my target, but if I look from where I came from to where I am now, so I've got a lot to be grateful for.
Yes, that's awesome. So good.
Yeah.
So what would you say is something that the Lord has really been impressing on you, in terms of things that he's showing you or saying to you, that maybe you have a sense that it's something that needs to be more widely known, or that the Lord would want you to kind of share a little bit about? Really going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, you have put me on the spot. I don't have an answer for you on that one, Ross. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay. Just, I don't know. I felt like the Lord, has been speaking to you about certain things, and that there's something that you may, a little bit of wisdom that you want to impart.
Yeah, no.
Nothing. Oh, okay. Well, I messed that one up.
What about in the realm of dreams and the prophetic, where you become adept? What kind of things, maybe from that realm, has God shown you that other people aren't aware of? Because I know, just like here, it's the same thing where you are in the UK. There are people you tell them about that you interpret dreams, and they look at you like you have 10 heads. What would you want those people to know?
Well, I mean, I guess dreams have been used throughout the Bible as a way of God communicating with us. And I mean, some dreams are actually literal, because I've had and I've given this testimony on Pastor Gary's newsletter about a dream I had, and you know, it was more like a warning. And when I woke up out of it, I just actually physically heard this voice, and I felt like it was a warning, and I got up and I actually prayed, because I felt like it had to do with my family.
Okay.
And I prayed, and then within a couple hours they called me and they said, my sister called me and she's like, oh, we just got into a really bad accident, but everybody's
Wow.
okay.
Great.
You know, and that wasn't to instill fear, but you know, dreams as a way of communicating with us is a way for God to get our attention, because a lot of times,
Right.
I can say this for me,
Yeah.
you know, we're so busy and we're so
Yes.
caught up in what's happening in the day-to-day life that
Yeah.
we you know, God is talking to us all the time. I mean, when I discovered this, it shocked me.
Yes.
But we're often so busy, and I found that when I look back in retrospect, I realized, oh, hang on, I wasn't talking to myself. I was actually talking to God.
There you go.
You know, but back to dreams, you know, is really good to get to understand what is my dream telling me, because you know, all dreams aren't of God. Some are from emotions, some is from the enemy.
Yeah.
But it's important, if God is trying to get your attention and he's trying to tell you something, because it can be change of direction. It could be like the dream I had, you know, where I guess if I didn't pray, something worse could have happened.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, in the Bible clearly shows that in various areas of the Bible where God used a dream to talk to people. So yeah.
Good. Awesome. Good stuff.
I ask, you know, because you just suddenly started interpreting dreams as if you had been doing it for 30 years. What took me like 10 years to start doing, you just all of a sudden, they sent you a dream and you just started interpreting it as if you were doing it your whole life.
How did that
I'm
happen?
curious if anything in your background prepared you at all, you know, or anything growing up, or things you had ever thought about or seen, or was it just totally the supernatural power of God just suddenly transforming you like that?
Well, I think so just to backtrack just slightly before I answer your question, I actually used to have dreams, even so I was saved at the time, but I wasn't walking with God, so I was backslidden, as you said, Russ. And I actually was having dreams during that period as well.
Sure.
And some of it was actually, I remember this point in my life, in my teenage life, where I was afraid to dream, because you know, when you're not doing something right and you get a dream about it, and you're like, I don't want to dream, because whatever I dream actually happens. And that was my recollection of that. But to answer your question, my journey with interpreting dreams kind of, I guess it must have been, you know, an unction from the Holy Spirit, from God, because you know, prior to meeting you guys and linking up with Pastor Gary, you know, I couldn't interpret dreams. I mean, I know because I had gone onto this onto a training session in London, and I, you know, they gave us this example to do, and it was rubbish. I couldn't do it. And it really literally happened as Pastor Gary said, you know, he just like gave me the dream, and I just interpreted it. And it had nothing to do with my abilities. It is all God.
Right.
You know, it's all a gift.
But I do
God.
think too that it's important for people to know that it was really, I think, largely out of your decision to enter into this mentoring relationship with Gary,
Yeah.
that you received an impartation
Yeah.
that really allowed for God to release something
Yeah.
in you that you may not have, maybe, you know, it would have taken you a number of years to get to that point.
Yeah.
But impartation is a huge shortcut that a lot of folks don't know about.
Yeah, it was. yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
awesome.
true.
Would you agree, Sir Fishman?
I had never seen anything like that. You know, I've seen it say for healing.
Yeah.
It happened to me one time. Randy Clark prayed for me, and then they started praying for people for a while. Everybody got healed out of the impartation
Yep.
from Randy Clark. But
Yeah.
dreams is a little different because it involves knowledge of symbols, it involves principles, and a whole bunch of different things. And for that to supernaturally just burn into your brain, like suddenly, like that.
Yeah.
You know, to have the whole mindset, you know, it's like the whole mindset you need and everything. It just got suddenly burned in.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like that.
It's you're a dream genius now.
Well,
No?
don't know about that.
Okay. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I hope those of you that are watching live or watching by recording have enjoyed this as much as we have. It's always great to get a chance to hear from a different perspective, different culture, in terms of, you know, what folks are experiencing. And you did a great job. I mean, you really did. You're a natural.
Yeah.
Don't you agree, Gary?
Yes, because I see from the old clock on the wall
Yeah.
that it's about time to be moseying along to the big dream show. But I'd be interested again. The last few weeks we've been talking about something that you're doing on Hope that people can participate in. And I was going to ask you, is it too late for people? I know you just got started.
Yeah, we got.
Is that something that passed people by, or is it too late for people to take part, you know, of what you're doing?
No, the train may have left the station, but you can still catch it. We actually started last Wednesday, and it's a self-paced thing, even though we're now, you know, it's a daily process. So if you're interested in the Hope Challenge, I can recommend that you go to my website, futureclaritynow.com, and you can read about it there. And if you feel like it would be helpful for you to get some clarity on what God is wanting you to know about your future. God's really been showing me some things about how we can predict our future based on what He shows us that He wants for us. So that's kind of the premise of the Hope Challenge, is to restore the hope that He has for us concerning our future. So yeah, check it out if you're interested in that. All righty then. Any other interesting tidbits to drop on us? All righty then. What?
You're asking for tidbits?
No, I didn't know if there were any other announcements. I think the jam thing is this Saturday, right?
Right. Jesus Anoint My Ministry with Sheila Bruce, and I'll be there, and
Yeah.
we're going to worship, have 2 hours of getting in the presence of God and the prophetic, and
Absolutely.
so that's going to be at Calvary Tabernacle.
Yeah.
In Cranford, New Jersey, this Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
That's correct.
Refreshments will be served.
Oh.
How about that?
All right.
We would appreciate if you can go on eventbrite.com and put in JAM, GAMM, and let Sheila know if you're coming, because we want to make sure we got a donut to do us.
All right. And that's actually JAMM. Okay.
Right, so we're going to go there and jam.
Yes. All righty. Well, thank you all for hanging out with us. Stay tuned for the Dream Show coming your way momentarily. All righty. Be blessed.